Okay. So, you want to start investing, but you only have like $100.
Hmm.
You're in the right place because we're going to deep dive into how to get started
Yeah,
investing for beginners when you just have that initial $100 to
exactly.
grow your wealth.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of demystify the whole thing and show you that you don't need
Right.
thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to get started.
Right. You can just start with that $100 and kind of go from there.
The big thing that we want to emphasize
Yeah.
is that the biggest hurdle for most people is just getting started.
Yeah.
It's not the amount of money, it's just like
Yeah.
taking that first step.
Right. Like a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I only have $100.
Right.
What can I possibly do with that?
Yeah.
And that's what this deep dive is for, is to
Exactly.
show you exactly what you can do with that initial $100.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just jump right in.
Yeah.
When we talk about like investing $100, what does that even mean?
Yeah. So investing in general is basically taking your money
Yeah.
and putting it into something
Yeah.
with the expectation that it's going to grow in value.
Okay. So it's not just like putting it in your
Right.
savings account.
It's not just saving, it's putting it into
Okay.
something that has the potential to grow.
Okay.
And there's different types of investments, obviously, but
Yeah.
for beginners, especially when you're talking about just $100,
Yeah.
things like stocks, which are, shares of a company, or even better ETFs, which are exchange traded funds.
Right. And so for somebody who's just starting out with $100,
Yeah.
we would suggest an ETF over individual stocks.
Yeah, and an ETF is like a basket of stocks.
Okay.
So it's like a pre-made, diversified
Okay.
portfolio.
So instead of betting on just one company,
Exactly.
I'm betting on like 50.
Yeah. Right, and that reduces your risk.
Okay. So that helps manage the risk a little.
A lot,
Yeah.
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 Because if you put all your $100 into one company and that company goes bankrupt, then you've lost all your money.
Right.
But if you put your $100 into an ETF that has 50 companies,
Yeah.
the chances of all 50 of those companies going bankrupt
Yeah, that's putting on like.
is very, very low.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main reasons why ETFs are good for beginners.
And so, I mean, we always hear about risk when we hear about investing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to like completely eliminate that risk?
No, there's no way to completely eliminate risk
Okay.
in any investment.
Yeah.
But you can manage it.
Okay.
So the general rule of thumb is that higher potential returns
Okay.
come with higher risk.
Okay, so like a really high risk investment would be
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Like a penny stock or something.
Yeah.
Like a really small company that's,
Yeah.
not very well established.
Okay.
Versus like a very large company.
Like a blue chip stock or something like that.
Yeah, or like an ETF that tracks the S&P 500. Would be considered a lower risk investment,
Right.
but it's also going to have a lower potential return.
Okay, so it's kind of like finding that balance.
Exactly.
What am I comfortable with?
Right.
How much risk do I want to take on?
And that's something that you have to decide for yourself.
Right.
Based on your own individual circumstances, your
Yeah.
risk tolerance.
Okay, so let's say I've decided I want to invest in an ETF.
Mm-hmm.
I have my $100.
Yeah.
How do I actually get that money into the ETF?
So the first thing you need to do is open a brokerage account.
Okay.
And there are a lot of online brokers these days
Yeah?
that have very low or even no minimum deposit requirements.
So you can just start with $100.
Yeah, you can just start with $100.
Okay.
And so once you have your brokerage account set up, you can then deposit your $100
Yeah.
and then you can buy an ETF.
And so when you mentioned these online brokers,
Mm-hmm.
what are some examples of what we're talking about?
Yeah, so some popular online brokers include
Sure.
Fidelity,
Okay.
Schwab, Vanguard.
Okay.
There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
Those are just a few examples.
Okay, and so are these like websites or?
Yeah, there are websites and apps.
Okay, so I can go on my phone,
Yeah,
set up an account, deposit money, and I can buy an ETF.
exactly.
Okay, and you mentioned that a lot of these ETFs will cost more than $100.
Right.
How do I buy an ETF if I only have $100?
That's a great question, and that's where fractional shares come in.
Oh, okay, so what are fractional shares?
So a fractional share is just a portion of a share.
Oh, okay.
So let's say an ETF costs $200.
Yeah.
You can buy half a share for $100.
Oh, okay.
So you still get exposure to that ETF,
Right.
even though you don't have enough money to buy a full share.
That's awesome. That's really great for beginners.
It is.
So you can still get started with a small amount of money
Exactly.
and then kind of grow from there.
Mm.
So you mentioned that ETFs are good for beginners because of diversification.
Right.
What are some other reasons why ETFs are good for beginners?
They're also very liquid,
Okay, what does that mean?
which means that you can buy and sell them easily.
Okay.
They're also very low cost.
Okay.
A lot of ETFs have expense ratios
So,
of less than 0.1%,
wow, that's really low.
which is very, very low.
Okay.
And so that's another reason why they're good for beginners,
Okay, cool.
because you're not losing a lot of your money to fees.
Right, right. Okay, so now I have my brokerage account. I've got my $100 in there.
Yep.
I bought my first ETF.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Now you sit back and relax.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, the key to investing is to think long term.
Okay.
This is not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Right.
It's a gradual process.
Okay.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
And so you have to be patient,
Okay.
and you have to be consistent.
Okay, so what does that mean, consistent?
So that means continuing to invest regularly,
Okay.
even if the market is going up or down.
Even if the market's going down.
Even if the market's going down.
Okay, so if I see my investment like going down,
Yeah.
do I need to like panic and sell or?
No, you don't need to panic and sell.
Okay.
In fact, that's usually the worst thing you can do.
Okay.
Because if you sell when the market is down,
Yeah.
you're locking in your losses
Okay.
and you're missing out on the potential for the market to rebound.
Oh, okay. So it's better to just like ride out the storm.
It's better to just write it out.
Okay.
And the market always goes up in the long run.
So it'll eventually go back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might take weeks, it might take months, it might take years,
Okay.
but it always goes up in the long run.
Okay.
And so if you just stay invested,
Yeah.
you'll eventually make your money back.
And then some, hopefully.
And then some.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that you need to remember
Yeah.
is the power of compounding.
Compounding. What is that?
So compounding is basically the idea that your investment earnings
Yeah.
can then earn further returns
Okay.
over time.
Right.
And so it's like a snowball effect where
Right.
your money is growing exponentially.
Okay, so my earnings are in earnings.
Your earnings are earnings.
Uh,
And so even small, consistent contributions
yeah.
can grow significantly over the years.
Okay, so even that initial $100
Yeah.
invested wisely and then consistently added to
Yeah.
can really build something over time.
It can absolutely build something over time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the most crucial takeaway for you, the listener, is that starting to invest with $100
Mm-hmm.
is not just possible. It's a really important first step
It is.
by exploring those brokerage accounts
Right.
that we talked about
Yep.
and beginner-friendly ETFs.
Exactly.
You're setting that foundation
Yeah.
for your financial future.
You are?
So there you have it.
Yeah.
You don't need a huge pile of cash to begin investing. It's all about just taking that initial plunge.
Right.
So now for you, the listener,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you can start with just $100,
Yeah.
what small action are you going to take today to kick off your investing journey?
That's the question.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.